Look at yourself in the eye. Dead in the eye. If God gave you Aliko Dangote's billions right now, if God gave you that wife or husband you lust after and pray for, would you even know what to do with them? Could you carry the load Dangote carries? Could you build what he's built? Could you rise every damn day with fire in your gut, discipline in your bones, and a vision so heavy it bends your spine? Or would you do what most do, fumble it, waste it, drown in it? Let's not pretend. Let's not lie to ourselves today. Here's the sharp edge of reality. Your life, as it stands, is proof you're not ready. God already said yes to your prayers, just as he did for Dangote. The door's not locked. But you're not strong enough to walk through it yet. The delay isn't from God. It's personal. It's you. You're the bottleneck. The weak link. The walking contradiction, screaming for blessings with one breath and sabotaging yourself with the next. Your mind's cluttered. Your habits are soft. Your faith? Shaky at best. You want results you haven't earned, outcomes you haven't become the kind of person who can hold. The universe is not confused. It doesn't operate on pity or potential. It responds to alignment, clarity, and force. When you become the person who matches what you're asking for, you'll find the doors wide open. Until then, stay stuck. That's not cruelty, that's law. Plain. Unforgiving. Exact. And hear me now, nobody's coming to pull you out. No angel. No mentor. No perfect moment. No one is coming. Not next week. Not when you feel better. Not when the chaos settles or the fear goes quiet. You're waiting on a sign? This is the sign. You're waiting on a calling? You've already been called. And every second you delay, your dream drifts. So let's stop pretending this is about timing. Or fate. Or bad luck. This is about you. It's always been about you. So I'll speak plain. This isn't meant to comfort you. It's meant to wake you. This is not for the man who needs soothing. It's for the one who's sick of wasting time and is finally ready to burn the excuses. You have two choices. Take the wheel, or hand it over. Build the life, or bury it. Rise, or rot. There is no middle road. Let it be carved into your mind like scripture. No one is coming. The answer? It's already here. It's in the mirror. It's in your breath. It's in that ache you feel every time you imagine more. You are the storm. You are the struggle. You are the solution. You are the answer to your own prayer. Own that, or stay a slave to your waiting. Welcome to Timbuktu Lectures, a production of Kilimanjaro News Network, the authentic voice of Africa. We studied the lives of over 25,000 men and women who achieved extraordinary success, and I can tell you this with mathematical certainty. Every single one, from Nelson Mandela to Aliko Dangote, from Mo Ibrahim to Barack Obama. These men who went from obscurity to greatness. Not by magic. Not by chance. But by mastery. They mastered themselves. They mastered self-discipline, initiative, and definite purpose. These are not traits of the lucky. These are choices of the determined. Each one reached deep and unlocked the vault within, not with permission, not with luck, but with decision. They refused to wait for rescue, refused to beg for validation. And each one, without exception, built a mind of steel. These are the signs that mark the soul of the chosen. You must understand this. God never designed prayer to be an escape hatch from responsibility. He never meant for faith to replace action. And yet, so many of us in Africa kneel down, eyes shut, palms open, hoping the skies will tear apart, that angels will descend with answers, while we sit still, unmoved, unchanged. We pray for change while refusing to change. We ask for blessings we've not prepared to carry. We plead for rain while holding no cup. This is the quiet tragedy of many believers. They keep asking God to do for them what He's been trying to do through them. Every prayer you've ever made, yes, even the one in the dark, whispered through tears, is a mirror. A reflection of the person you're being shaped into. That's why real spiritual maturity begins when you stop asking, "When will God answer me?" and start asking, "What must I become to carry the answer I seek?" That question shifts everything. Because here's the truth. God already moved the moment the desire was planted in your spirit. The path began unfolding, not just in front of you, but through you. It was never supposed to happen without your transformation. Prayer without transformation is like sowing seeds but refusing to till the soil. It becomes motion without depth. Ritual without substance. And God does not respond to ritual, He responds to alignment. You are the vessel. You are the bridge between heaven and earth. If your life is stuck, it's not because God hasn't heard you. It's because He's waiting for you to move. To speak differently. To walk differently. To think like someone who already holds what they're asking for. Because only then can infinite intelligence reshape reality to match the frequency you now carry. God doesn't reward longing. He rewards embodiment. You don't attract what you beg for. You attract what you're willing to become. Let me put it plainly. If you've been praying and waiting, if you feel like nothing is changing, ask yourself, have I become the version of me that can carry what I'm asking for? Because until you do, the answer remains on hold. Not because God is cruel, but because He knows if He gave it to you now, it would break you. He loves you too much to give you something that still outweighs your character. This is the sacred mercy no one talks about. God doesn't deny you. He delays what would destroy you. And in that delay, He extends a divine invitation. Not to wait harder, but to rise higher. Not to pray louder, but to become clearer. Every answered prayer demands a version of you that can carry it without cracking. This is not punishment. This is preparation. So hear me when I say this. You are not just here to ask. You are here to embody the answer. And when your spirit finally whispers, "I am ready to become what this blessing requires," heaven takes notice. The winds shift. Not because you made more noise, but because you tuned into the right frequency. You don't need another sign. You need alignment. You don't need to chase. You need to match. The blessing is already assigned to you. But so is the character required to hold it. And if that character is not developed, the blessing will remain behind the veil. Not because God is withholding, but because He is waiting for you to become compatible with what you asked for. That's why nothing truly changes until you change. God does not deliver blessings to versions of you that were never meant to carry them. If you want to see the supernatural, you must step into natural obedience. The kind that prepares the way. That's the key. Heaven answers through transformation. Prayer is permission. But your becoming is what makes the delivery possible. Everything changes the moment you realize this. You are not just the one making the request. You are the one being shaped into the answer. You can cry all night. You can scream into your pillow. You can fast, plead, beg, pray in tongues. And still, nothing may shift. Why? Because God does not respond to emotion alone. He responds to identity. He listens to your heart, yes. But He moves according to the level of self you're willing to walk in. And that's where many fall short. They pray as one person and expect to receive as another. They ask for peace, but carry the identity of chaos. They beg for love, but speak to themselves in the language of unworthiness. They declare provision, but live like someone who doubts they'll ever see abundance. But listen, prayer is not about saying the right words. It's about becoming the right frequency. That is the law of faith. And God, who is infinite intelligence, does not move because of how loud you cry, but how deeply you align. Prayer is not performance. It is resonance. You cannot convince God by suffering more. You attract his movement by becoming someone he can move through. That's what real faith does. It rewires your identity. It shifts your emotional state. It upgrades your posture. And until that shift happens, no amount of external effort can replace the inner agreement that heaven is waiting on. Because God isn't looking for desperation. He's looking for congruence. When your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions agree with the future you've asked for, heaven takes notice. Not because you've earned it, but because now you can carry it. You've become a match. So here's the challenge. The next time you pray, don't just ask. Examine. Who is doing the asking? Is it the older version of you? The one still shackled by doubt? Still bruised by history? Still whispering, beneath the breath, maybe I'm not ready? Or is it the version of you that says, I was forged for this. I am aligning with this. I am stepping into the rhythm of what I've already received in the spirit. And now, I will become it in the flesh. That's where the power lives. That's when the gates begin to shift. Not because you found the perfect prayer, but because your entire life became one. You think Mandela's prayers were made of words? No. His prayer was 27 years long. Each day in that cell, each moment refusing to let hatred rot his spirit. Each time he chose vision over vengeance. That was the prayer. The most powerful prayers are not spoken. They're lived. They show up in your decisions. Your discipline. Your posture. Your presence. And when God sees someone willing to rebuild their identity, to match what they've asked for, He moves. Not because you were loud, but because you were ready. It's easy, so easy, to believe God is delaying. That heaven is withholding. That maybe you're being punished. But what if the delay isn't divine? What if the resistance is internal? What if the gap between your prayer and its fulfillment has less to do with time and everything to do with the version of you still unfit to receive it? We say, God works in mysterious ways. But some of those mysteries vanish. When you realize this, God plants desire in your soul like a seed. Then He waits. Not to test your patience, but to see if you'll become the kind of soil that can grow it. That's not punishment. That's partnership. Because if He handed it to you too soon, it would die in your hands. You'd fumble it. Leak it through the cracks of your old identity. Your past wounds, your quiet self-doubt, your borrowed limits. So He waits. He waits for your character to grow roots. For your emotions to find balance. For your internal world to be strong enough to carry the thing you begged for. And if you refuse to grow, if you resist the shaping, the pruning, the construction, then the answer stalls. Not because God said no, but because you did. You said no to the process required to become the person who could hold the blessing. That's where most people break. That's where faith fractures. Because they confuse silence with rejection. But silence, in the spiritual dimension, often means you're being built. Brick by brick. Layer by layer. And if you stop halfway, if you slip back into the arms of your old life, your old excuses, your old story, then the whole thing slows again. Not because God is cruel, but because He cannot violate the image you hold of yourself. Spirit moves through structure. And if your inner structure doesn't match what you're asking for, nothing moves. This is why embodiment matters. Because God doesn't just answer words. He answers alignment. So don't just pray. Become. If you pray for peace, but live in panic, your frequency blocks it. If you ask for love, but embody lack, your life will only reflect what you believe you deserve. And no, you cannot fake this. Heaven is not fooled by performance. It is moved by vibration. by the truth of who you are when no one's watching. So the question becomes, have I become the answer I'm waiting for? If the answer is no, then stop looking at the sky and start looking in the mirror. Because the more you embody it, the more life must reflect it. That's not hope. That's law. The spiritual realm is not distant. It's responsive. And it is waiting on you to become the version of yourself that already knows. This prayer isn't on the way, it's within me, forming me, becoming me. Here's what most people don't realize. They're resisting the very thing they're praying for. Not out of rebellion, but out of programming. They speak words of desire, yet carry emotional patterns that reject what they say they want. They pray for abundance, but still feel guilt around money. They ask for love, but subconsciously fear being seen. They cry out for peace, but keep habits that stir anxiety. So the contradiction remains. And heaven cannot override contradiction. Look at Mo Ibrahim, he prayed for African transformation, but first had to shed the belief that technology belonged to others. He asked for cellular revolution across the continent, but had to stop feeling like an outsider in the telecommunications game. Because God, as infinite intelligence, responds not to what you say, but to what you carry. If your inner world says, "I'm not safe with this," you're sending a vibration that cancels the very thing you're calling in. The subconscious becomes the architect of your reality, while your conscious mind wonders why nothing's shifting. It's because you're pushing away what you're asking for, while pretending to pull it in. And this is the moment of truth. You cannot manifest what you still fear. You cannot receive what you still feel unworthy of. You cannot become what you still believe is unsafe. That's why transformation must begin with awareness. Until you face the emotional resistance hiding in your heart, your prayer stays locked. Not as punishment, but as physics. Spirit doesn't override your energy. It flows through your permission. Ask yourself, what would happen if the very thing you're praying for showed up today? Not in fantasy, but in physical form? Would you feel peace? Or panic? Would you feel ready? Or would you sabotage it? If you're honest, the answer will show you where your resistance lives. And that's where the real work begins. Because until your spirit is in agreement, nothing you ask for can rest in your life. It might visit, but it won't stay. And God is not interested in giving you something fleeting. He wants to give you something eternal. So release the resistance. Rewrite the story. Begin to tell your subconscious, I am safe to receive. I am worthy of abundance. I am ready to be seen. I am willing to be loved. And when these affirmations take root, not just in your mouth, but in your vibration, you become a new vessel, no longer asking from a place of lack, but becoming from a place of overflow. And the moment you reach that place, God begins to move. Not just for you, but through you. Because the greatest prayer you will ever pray is the one your whole being agrees with. No resistance. No fear. Just readiness. Just alignment. There is a signal heaven waits for. Not a sound. Not a word. But a vibration that says, I'm ready. It doesn't come from your mouth. It comes from the center of your being. The moment your doubt turns into conviction. When desperation is replaced by decision. From that moment forward, life begins to bend toward you differently. Not because you begged longer, but because your inner world finally stabilized enough for God to flow through you with clarity. Obama understood this. The moment his doubt turned into decision. When the question changed from "Can I?" to "How will I?" From that moment forward, history began to bend toward him differently. Understand this. Heaven is not waiting for a louder voice. It's waiting for a unified one. One that doesn't collapse into doubt when things get quiet. One that doesn't revert to shame the moment things get slow. Because when your inner conversation becomes a match for the prayer you sent out, reality has no choice. The vibration you walk in becomes the future you live in. That's not just prayer. That's power. The modern seeker, especially in our culture, is often paralyzed by indecision. Not for lack of desire, but because he's always waiting. Waiting for confirmation. Waiting for a sign in the sky. Waiting for permission from the world to proceed. And all the while, he forgets the most critical truth in spiritual law. The most powerful signs aren't shown to you. They're born through you. You were never meant to wait indefinitely. Faith was never meant to be idle. Infinite intelligence doesn't reward the man who hesitates at the edge of the mountain, but the one who climbs, not knowing where his foot will land next. You see, you're waiting for a sign before you move is the hallmark of doubt disguised as spirituality. And God, being the source of all clarity, does not stoke confusion. He speaks best to the man already in motion. The moment you start walking in alignment with what you prayed for, you become the proof. Your life becomes the sign. Your attitude shifts. Your refusal to return to old habits becomes a signal. Your calm certainty, even in uncertainty, that's the sign. But most people want confidence before they move. They wait for the world to give them the feeling they were always meant to give themselves. And that waiting delays everything. Because faith without works is dead. And too many die spiritually while still breathing. Because they buried their belief under analysis, hesitation, and endless waiting for something outside of them to validate what they already know within. But here's the higher law. When you act like your prayer has already been answered, you collapse the distance between you and the result. There is no secret path. There is only alignment. And alignment is not about perfection. It's about congruence. It's when your intention, your emotion, and your decision all point in the same direction. That's when the signs come. Not because you begged for them, but because you became one. The universe starts rearranging itself. Not just around your request, but around your embodiment. Ask yourself, would the version of me who's already received this blessing be sitting still? Hesitating? Doubting? Or would they be stepping forward? Calm, decisive, trusting that whatever doesn't exist yet will be built beneath their feet? If you can answer that honestly and act on it, you become magnetic. You begin pulling into your life exactly what belongs to your vibration. God does not withhold. The law does not punish. But both require movement. The one who sits in fear will only see obstacles. The one who rises in faith will begin to notice openings. This is not superstition. It is spiritual physics. Your movement gives the divine something to bless. Your choice becomes the container for the answer. Your boldness reveals your belief more clearly than your words ever could. So stop looking for signs. Become one. Let your courage be a message to the heavens. I'm ready. Let your persistence signal, I will not abandon what I prayed for. And in doing so, you stop asking whether the answer is coming. Because your life becomes the undeniable evidence that it's already here. There comes a point in every spiritual journey when the asking must stop and the becoming must begin. Not because God hasn't heard you, but because He has. Not because you're being ignored, but because the answer has already been released. And now it's your task to rise into it. The truth is, most people pray for change, but keep walking in the same posture, the same rhythm, the same emotional climate that created the very problem they're trying to escape. They declare a new future with their mouths, but betray it with their behavior. But the one who really believes? He walks differently. She speaks differently. They prepare the room before the guest arrives. They organize their day like someone who expects to be met by destiny. They show up with the energy of someone who already knows. The request has been fulfilled in the unseen, and is simply waiting for the physical world to catch up. That's not delusion. That's alignment. And alignment is what pulls the unseen into visible reality. Because, let this burn in. Faith without embodiment is just noise. You don't get what you asked for with your lips. You get what you prepared for with your habits. Your daily life is a declaration. Every time you organize your time, sharpen your mind, steward your environment, or cultivate peace in the middle of chaos, you are communicating something far more powerful than words. You're saying, I am already one with the answer. And heaven listens to that language. This is where most fall short. They pray, then wait to feel different before they act different. But the spiritual law works in reverse. You act in faith, and the feeling follows. The movement creates the momentum. The posture of belief generates the reality of belief. That's why some doors only open after you've already started walking toward them. Not because they were locked, but because you hadn't proven yet that you were ready to pass through. When your steps begin to match your declarations, the world must shift. You attract the resources, the people, the ideas, not by chasing them, but by becoming the kind of person they naturally gravitate toward. That's the hidden mechanism behind answered prayer. It is not external. It is transformation. When you change, the current of life adjusts to accommodate the new version of you. So today, stop circling the same mountain. Stop praying for what you're not yet willing to carry. Instead, build the habits of the one who already has it. Speak like it's done. Move like it's done. Organize your space like it's coming. Treat your work like sacred ground, because it is. You're not waiting on God. He's waiting on you to walk like you've already received. And when you walk like that, the delay ends because you're no longer requesting. You're receiving. You're no longer wondering. You're embodying. And life, in its divine wisdom, can now match what you finally dared to become. Here's the truth that rarely gets said in church. God doesn't move when you shout. Not when you pray in tongues or fast. He moves when you resonate. When your inner life reflects what your lips have declared. He shows up. Not with delay. Not with resistance. But with speed and certainty. Because when the signal is pure, the delivery is guaranteed. Most people treat prayer like a request form submitting their needs, then waiting for divine approval. But real prayer, the kind that shifts atmospheres and rewires futures, is not passive. It is a transfer of power. From the unseen into the seen. From divine mind into your human vessel. And when you pray with that understanding, you're not just speaking into the void. You are receiving instructions. You're upgrading your identity. You're being infused with the vibration of what's to come. But the transfer cannot complete if your system is not ready. Think of it like this: you can't build a skyscraper on a foundation meant for a mud hut. It'll collapse. In the same way, the universe will not pour the full force of your destiny into a vessel that's still unstable, distracted, or unsure of its own worth. That's why some of the most important seasons in your spiritual journey don't feel like breakthrough. They feel like preparation. The universe is strengthening the foundation, expanding your capacity, preparing you not just to receive the blessing, but to sustain it without crumbling under its weight. This is why life sometimes feels like pressure, like delay, like silence. It's not punishment. It's divine calibration. You are being built to carry the answer you've been declaring. And when you finally become strong enough, still enough, aligned enough, The energy moves. Ideas come with speed. Resources arrive with ease. The vision gets clearer. The way opens wider. The next steps become undeniable. Not because of luck, but because you've entered the flow of delivery. So stop praying like you're placing an order. Start praying like you're plugging into the current of infinite intelligence. Say, God, make me a channel. Make me the match. Make me the vessel. Because when your prayer becomes an invitation for transformation, you are no longer waiting for a miracle. You are becoming the miracle in motion. Understand this deeply. The most powerful outcomes in your life will not fall fully formed from the sky. They will be channeled into your spirit first. And when that transmission finishes its work inside you, the outer world must adjust to the new power you carry. That is the part so many forget. Prayer does not change God. It changes you. And when you change, everything else follows. You'd be shocked to know how many prayers were already on their way. Already assigned, already written into the divine flow. But got interrupted because the person asking couldn't hold the frequency long enough. Not because they were evil. Not because they didn't want it. But because they stepped out of alignment. Before the answer had time to mature. They asked. Then waited. Then grew anxious. They believed. Then overthought. They moved in faith, then reversed course in fear. And like a farmer, they planted the seed, but when the delay felt longer than expected, they went back, dug up the soil, and searched for proof it was growing. That's how you kill what you planted. The ego creeps in. It demands evidence. It wants control. And when it doesn't see results fast enough, it calls the whole process a failure. Maybe I did it wrong. Maybe God's punishing me. Maybe I'm not good enough. But that's not spiritual insight. That's impatience dressed in fear. And the law of creation does not respond to impatience. It responds to persistence, to stillness, to certainty, to embodiment. God doesn't stop working when you get tired. You stop seeing when you stop believing. And that's what most forget. Faith isn't just a spark at the beginning. It's a fire that must keep burning through the silence. Through the waiting, through the slow, quiet, ordinary days when nothing seems to be moving. But something is always moving. It just doesn't always move on your schedule. Some answers are so sacred, so transformational, that heaven takes its time building the structure inside you, before the form arrives outside you. And every time you question the promise you just asked for, you create what I call vibrational drift. You shift from it's done to maybe not. From I believe to I'm not sure anymore. And each shift, like interference in a frequency, resets the process. Not because God is angry, but because the signal got scrambled. And God will not deliver what your soul no longer seems willing to carry. This is why consistency of spirit is one of the rarest and most powerful states to maintain. When you pray with clarity and keep walking with congruence, when your frequency stays steady even in the absence of proof, you override delay with embodiment. You become the kind of person God can trust with the delivery. Because you didn't drop it halfway. You didn't abandon it. You held the frequency. You kept the fire burning. And so heaven responds. Not because you begged harder, but because you became the match. So hear this clearly. Stop interrupting what's trying to complete. Stop doubting what you've already declared. Stay in the vibration of already done. Stay in the identity of already aligned. Because the moment you stop restarting the process, the answer finds its way home. There is a conversation happening inside you at all times. A whisper between what you were conditioned to believe and what your spirit knows is true. And until that conversation changes, your external world cannot follow. Most people don't realize it. But the subconscious mind is always giving instructions. To your body, to your energy, to the world around you. And those instructions become your reality. Not because life is cruel, but because life is obedient to the dominant vibration you carry. So if deep inside, you're still saying, "I don't deserve this. It's too late. This kind of life isn't for people like me," then it doesn't matter how many affirmations you speak aloud. Your results will still echo the truth of what your inner conversation believes. That's not negative thinking. That's spiritual misalignment. And God, who speaks in vibration more than language, responds to the real voice inside you. The one you don't say out loud. That's why transformation doesn't start with louder prayers. It starts with cleaner self-talk. When your inner dialogue shifts from fear to faith, from self-rejection to self-permission, everything else begins to reorient around it. The world begins treating you the way you treat yourself. The people you meet will mirror the vibration you carry. The doors that open will match the clarity you've developed about who you are and what you're here to carry. That's the part no one teaches you about prayer. It's not just about asking. It's about agreeing with the version of yourself that can receive it. So if you ask for healing but still identify as someone broken, you block the flow. If you ask for love but still speak to yourself with bitterness, you contradict the very thing you're asking for. And the spiritual law says this clearly. You can only receive what you've internally normalized. So start here. In the morning, before anyone else speaks into your life. You speak into your own life. Say, "I am aligned with what I've asked for. I am becoming the vessel for what is already mine." Speak it. Not to convince God, He's already convinced. But to reprogram your spirit into agreement with the blessing that's already on its way. Because once your subconscious stops rejecting what your conscious mind desires, miracles can finally land. Heaven isn't waiting for a louder voice. It's waiting for a unified one. One that doesn't collapse in doubt when things get quiet. One that doesn't shrink in shame when things get slow. When your inner conversation becomes a match for the prayer you sent out, reality must respond. The vibration you walk in becomes the future you live in. That's not just prayer. That's power. The modern seeker, especially the one who's been wounded by systems, tamed by religion, or trained to wait for outside validation, is often stuck. Not because they don't believe, but because they've been taught to wait. Waiting for confirmation. Waiting for signs in the sky. Waiting for someone to lay hands and give them permission to move. And all the while, they forget this. The most powerful signs are not shown to you. They are born through you. You were never meant to wait indefinitely. Faith was never meant to be passive. Infinite intelligence, call it God, Source, Spirit, does not reward the one who hesitates on the edge of the mountain. It rewards the one who climbs, not knowing exactly where their foot will land next. Because waiting for proof before taking a step is the signature of doubt. Doubt, dressed up as spiritual caution. But God is not the author of confusion. He speaks clearest to the one already in motion. And the moment you start walking in alignment with what you prayed for, you become the proof. Your life becomes the sign. Your changed posture. Your sacred discipline. Your refusal to return to the old identity. These are the signals. Yet most people want confidence before they act. They wait for the world to give them the feeling they were always meant to give themselves. That waiting delays everything. Faith without works is dead. And many are spiritually lifeless, not because God failed them, but because they buried their belief under overthinking, fear and hesitation. They are waiting for something outside to validate what they already know deep within. But here is the higher law. When you act like your prayer has already been answered, you collapse the distance between you and the result. There's no secret formula. There's only alignment. And alignment isn't about perfection. It's about congruence. It's when your emotions, your intention, and your daily decisions all face the same direction. That's when the universe moves. That's when the signs appear. Not because you begged for them, but because you became one. So ask yourself honestly, Would the version of me who's already received this blessing be sitting still? Second-guessing? Doubting? Or would they be moving forward? Grounded? Certain, trusting that what doesn't exist yet will be built beneath their feet. If you can answer that question and act accordingly, you become magnetic. You begin to pull into your experience exactly what belongs to your vibration. Because God does not withhold. The law does not punish. But both require movement. The one who sits in fear will only see obstacles. But the one who stands in faith will begin to notice openings. This isn't superstition. This is spiritual physics. Your movement gives the divine something to bless. Your decision becomes the container for the answer. Your boldness reveals your belief more than any prayer ever could. So stop looking for signs. Become one. Let your courage declare to heaven, I am ready. Let your persistence say, I will not abandon what I've prayed for. And in doing so, you stop asking if the answer is coming, because your life becomes the undeniable evidence that it's already here. And so we end where we began. But we see it differently now. No one is coming. Because no one needs to. The answer is already within you. Asking not for permission, but for embodiment. Not for rescue, but for alignment. Not for proof, but for motion. It's not about waiting harder. It's about rising higher. And when you do, when you become the one your prayer has been waiting on, the world responds. Because you didn't just ask for a miracle. You became it.
Congratulations. Well done on making it to the end. Let's take a moment and just breathe together. Because what we just heard wasn't a lecture. It was a mirror. It was a summons. It was a line drawn in the sand between who we've been and who we are now being called to become. Sometimes you see some messages you hear, but this one, you feel it in your bones. Because somewhere deep down, you already knew it. That no one is coming. That the life you keep waiting for will only arrive when you arrive in it fully, boldly, completely. And maybe tonight you realized something. That your delays weren't divine punishment. They were divine preparation. That God hasn't been ignoring you. He's been constructing you. And now, the building is almost done. The scaffolding of doubt, fear, guilt, it's time for it to come down. Because the world doesn't need another person asking for permission. It needs someone who walks like the answer is already here. So here's what I'll leave you with. When you walk out of this lecture, walk different. When you speak to yourself in the morning, speak different. When life throws silence at you, don't shrink. Stand up. Because you've heard the truth now. And once you know it, you can't unknow it. No one is coming. You are the answer. You are the sign you've been praying for. And heaven is not waiting to be convinced. Heaven is waiting for your alignment. So rise. Move. Speak. Build. Become. And may your life, from this moment forward, be the loudest prayer you ever pray. Thank you. Timbuktu Lectures is a production of Kilimanjaro News Network, the authentic voice of Africa. Broadcasting in Swahili, Arabic, Hausa, English, and French. Don't forget to like, share and scan our QR code to access our YouTube channel and website. Revisit this lecture again and again. Share with your focus group, mastermind, friends, and family.